Morning, everybody. It almost feels like a redundant question, but can everybody hear me and see me okay? Because if you can't see me now, you're not seeing your panelists through the day. Brilliant. Welcome, everybody, to MemberCon23. Before we kick off proceedings, I would just like to invite everybody to take a moment and breathe in the incredible view here at the top of the space of the Spine building. When we arrived this morning, it was crystal clear view. I did insert a weather joke, but we're missing the thunderstorms that relate to it, so I'm not going to do that this morning. But I hope you all agree with me, in spite of the fog and mist over the Welsh mountains, that the Royal College of Physicians have a really fabulous place to call home here. Now, I am reliably informed that there are no fire alarms scheduled today, so if you do hear a fire alarm at any point throughout the day, please follow the fire exits calmly, safely. And if you do have any questions about the logistics for the day or any questions about the venue, the Institute's team or any of the venue team will be more than happy to help. You'll know us by the badges. We've got our lovely logo on there, so please just grab someone or flag them down. We have got a couple of roaming mics in the room as well, so during the panel sessions, please ask questions. So for those of you who are new to MemberCon, welcome. For those of you who are returning for our second annual conference, welcome back. When I was lucky enough to join the Institute's membership team back in 2021, it was you, our members, telling us you were keen to reconnect, redevelop, continually professionally develop, but most importantly, get back in a room with one another. MemberCon was designed to facilitate this need, and we launched last year in Birmingham, and the feedback from our members was absolutely fabulous. So here we are for our second annual conference in Liverpool, and we built on the feedback you provided us to ensure this year our topics are covering real practical tips and trade solutions for traders to take away in real time. And like last year, for those of you who do remember, we used a brilliant platform to engage everybody called Slido. We are going to do very much the same thing again today. So I do invite you to stretch your arms, your fingers, and your phones up to the screen to scan the QR code. We'll have 3 amuse-bouche polls today, this morning, just to get everybody's brain flowing, everybody moving. If at any point the QR code isn't working for you, there is another link in the next slide. So first poll for today, we're really keen to know how far did you travel to come and see your fellow members? And whilst this poll is just getting familiar for everybody, I should just mention, do remember to hit send when you're popping your responses in, otherwise they're going to sit on your phone and we won't know. Whilst you're just getting familiar with Slido and learning about how far everyone's come to visit each other, blimey, I'm just looking at the results, 67% of you over 50 miles. Wow. We are going to be live posting throughout the day on Twitter and LinkedIn, so please do join the conversation using hashtag MemberCon23. We'd love to hear your thoughts, experiences, and if you're taking any of your pictures of the day. So I'll just round that up. Much like myself, most of you seem to have come over 50 miles, so brilliant to see you've all come so far to visit us. We really appreciate that. We're also quite keen to know, how did you get here today? You shouldn't need to rescan the poll, it should just refresh on the app on your screen, so any problems, just let us know. Oh yes, absolutely. It does say, hopefully you can all see, you can select more than one answer, so if you ran part of the way and then decided, nope, taxi now please, let us know. So most people travelling in by car, that's quite brilliant to see. Trains just started to pip. So thank you everybody for bearing with all the train challenges yesterday if you did arrive yesterday. If you're anything like us, it was 3 cancelled trains, but we're really excited to see you all today. So we know how far you've come, we know how you got here. Now for the ever important question. What really inspired you to come and visit us at MemberCon today? Was it the knowledge building opportunities? Was it the opportunity to meet your fellow members and peers? Oh no. Was it our brilliant speaker lineup and panelists? Or much like me, did your boss make you come along today? Oh, fantastic. So this really talks to what we were talking about a few moments ago, how getting back in a room, developing and learning is really what MemberCon's all about. So before we move on to our brilliant next piece, it's fabulous just to let you know that on top of the full agenda of how to keep trade moving, how to meet your fellow members and peers whilst networking with our brilliant member benefits providers in the exhibition space, I'm sure you'll agree with me by the end of today that meeting our exhibitors, who without this event wouldn't be possible in the spaces just outside and downstairs, brilliant trade facilitation solutions available. So please do make the most of these exhibiting spaces. I really do encourage you to make the most of the networking throughout the day. And this evening, if you're staying with us for the drinks reception afterwards. A little bit about the day. You do have the opportunity to join one of two work streams. In this room, we'll have our panel sessions in the main plenary, and building on last year's feedback, we do have a secondary work stream downstairs in additional space being chaired by the wonderful Will Barnes-Graham and being brought by our trade and customs professionals, Raymond Bergin, Matt Vick and Samantha Hodgkins. So if you do know which one you're looking to join, the agenda and information is going to be throughout the building for the entirety of the day, or just flag one of us down and we'll let you know where you need to be. So this is your MemberCon. It's informed by, delivered with, and developed by our members. So for non-members and guests joining us today, we really invite you to get to know us, get to know our members, taste the expertise and opportunities available through the Institute and our members. Later today, through this panel sessions, we'll hear about managing the costs of international trade. We'll hear about how businesses are greening their supply chains. Some more inspiring tips on how businesses can become trade champions. But now, to properly welcome you to the Liverpool City in a much better way than I ever could, I'm going to hand over to Dan Carden.
Hello everybody and welcome to The Spine. I'm Dan Carden and I'm privileged to be the Member of Parliament for Liverpool Walton. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person today, but I wanted to welcome you to this wonderful city and to MemberCon23, the Institute of Export and International Trade's annual member-driven conference. I'm really pleased that the Institute has decided to hold MemberCon in the city that I am so proud to call home and represent in Parliament. Liverpool has a strong history of being at the forefront of innovation and industry. Not far from where you are now, the world-famous Albert Dock was created as the first ever commercial wet dock, and global trade has been intertwined with our city for centuries. Manufacturing, in particular, has also long been a strength of the city, and it currently contributes £3.2 billion to the overall economy, providing jobs for nearly 50,000 people across the Liverpool City region. But despite the many ways in which Liverpool is flourishing, I speak to businesses on a regular basis, and I know that the past few years have been really financially challenging. You have endured wave after wave of challenges, from the impacts of the pandemic to the fallout of the war in Ukraine. And this is why it is more crucial than ever that businesses like yours have the support they need to rebuild after this difficult period and to trade with confidence with markets across the world. So I'm really excited for the opportunities that today's conference will provide for you to network with others in the trade world in order to share expertise, knowledge and experiences. The Institute has put together a fantastic programme for the day, and their experts are on hand to answer any questions you may have, from customs changes and the finer details of rules of origin, to how your business can develop sustainable supply chains and make the best use of free trade agreements. I truly hope that you are able to leave today with new ideas and a fresh optimism for your business, wherever you're up to in your exporting journey. Enjoy the conference.
Well, with thanks to Dan for that very warm welcome to Liverpool. Until planning this year's MemberCon, I'd actually never been fortunate enough to come to Liverpool myself. And Much as the rumours led me to believe, I was blown away by the City of Culture and the reception I received, right from stepping off the train almost 6 months ago through to my experience here at Space for Spine and the venue throughout. Now, when you think of Liverpool, most people think of the birthplace of the Beatles, the rivalry between the two Premier League teams, I'm sure they're still Premier League teams, someone correct me if I'm wrong, Everton and Liverpool Football Club. Yet with over 800 years of international trade history, Liverpool really does have a story of growth and culture to tell. We saw earlier that most of you have come through train at one point or another today. It's actually the UK's oldest mainline train station, Liverpool Lime Street, if you were journeying to us through there. And testament to the quality of the station itself, it is still in operation today. Obviously, you didn't walk from the middle of an empty ground, I hope. But what's been really important around this train station is the infrastructure. It has enabled the movement of people, but it's also ensured movement of goods has continued to evolve. In 2021, investment to the tune of 8.3 million was directed into the freight lines servicing Liverpool, the ports and the surrounding cities. That funding has built not only greener infrastructure, much like the building we're in today, and the development across the Knowledge Quarter you'll see around you, but it's helped reduce road freight durations. The investment has created jobs, employing more people, and there are now trains delivering more vital goods to and from the ports to service import and export. Liverpool's lines and services are meeting predicted demand within the next decades. Really does show how international trade can and is a force for good locally, nationally, and internationally. But it's now my delight to introduce our COO, Kelly Rawls, to give the next keynote speech on the importance of getting trade moving again. A warm welcome, Kelly.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Helen, thank you for that wonderful introduction here today. I'm really pleased to be here today at MemberCon23. MemberCon is a significant date in the diary for us here at the Institute of Export and International Trade. It allows us to bring together business, industry, academia and policy experts to learn from each other, provide new insights and create meaningful connections, which I hope you will all do today from the networking sessions that you'll be part of. Because it's such a significant date for us at the Institute, it's particularly sad that our Director General, Marco Forgione, unfortunately can't be here with us today due to personal reasons. He's asked me to pass on his sincere apologies to you all. However, he's looking forward to many more opportunities throughout the year to meet with you guys at our annual General Conference, in September and our Import-Export show in November. So I hope you can all join us at those events. So firstly, I want to say a big thank you to everybody here today, from our members, exhibitors, speakers and policy makers, and to all of those who have helped make this event run incredibly smoothly, especially the early, 7 a.m. team welcome call, a briefing we had this morning. So a big thank you to everybody that's made today possible. Welcome also to this magnificent building, which just last week, if you didn't know, was rated amongst the healthiest in the world, after receiving a platinum level in WELL Core certification. In fact, when the building was built, it had a philosophy that when you leave the building, you'll walk away feeling much more healthier than when you arrived today. I'll let you guys decide on how you feel when you do leave today, but we certainly want you to walk away from today feeling more equipped to deal with some of the challenges within international trade than when you arrived today. It's safe to say that we're still coming out of some of the most challenging times for businesses within recent British history, and we heard about a few of them, so the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and the cost of living crisis. It's no surprise to any of us here today, I'm sure, that international trade has been affected. The Office of Budget Responsibility has recently predicted that weakness in the UK trade is likely to continue for the next 2 years. with export volumes forecasted to fall by 6.6% in 2023 and 0.3% in 2024. Just this week, on Monday, it was reported that the global factory activity has plummeted, with sluggish demand in both China and Europe and affecting exporters across the world. The international world trade is coming out of a storm, but slowly. We're deeply aware that these challenges have affected everybody in the room today and how tough it must be for our members here today. And we've been working hard to support you both through our training and educational expertise, and also to provide new solutions to support UK businesses to begin exporting. That's why, coinciding with the United Nations MSME Day last week, we're really excited to share that we launched a 5 million export programme to support exports. This aims to provide support for 1,250 businesses with the necessary training to expand internationally. The UK has signed numerous trade agreements that will benefit MSME across the country. However, it's essential that we equip businesses with the knowledge, skills and expertise to take full advantage of these opportunities. This, through our bespoke packages of consultancy and training, will be providing to businesses the knowledge, expertise to trade confidently and compliantly with the world. Just a few weeks ago, we launched the UK's first e-commerce trade commission to encourage and support businesses to trade export online. The creation of the commission follows a recommendation in 2022 report by the Social Market Foundation, which found encouraging SMEs to begin their e-commerce journey by exporting could kickstart 70,000 more UK small businesses to start exporting and boost the economy by 9.3 billion. The Commission will therefore seek to address this and the existing trade barriers simply by looking at the pathways to trade and incentivise small businesses. And bringing it back down to a real practical level, we're really excited to share that the IOE&IT just in June opened our contact centre in Peterborough, so our headquarters in Peterborough, and this is to ensure that we continue to enhance our support for members, traders, both in the UK and overseas, and continue to be able to take your calls every day. If you have any questions about these initiatives, please do grab anybody with an Institute badge throughout the day and they'll be able to point you in the right direction to find out more. We trust that initiatives such as these can both help support businesses on a day-to-day basis and also collectively look at the future to see how we can encourage more businesses to start, continue and thrive in their exporting journeys. So looking at the exporting journeys is really what today is all about. In order to come to this event today, you didn't just teleport and find yourself here today. However, that would have been wonderful if we could have done, and maybe some very different poll results. You had to plan. So you had to plan where you would start your journey, what the most efficient route would be, by what time you needed to be here. You had to plan perhaps what that would look like and what provisions you would need along the way. For us, ourselves, as we shared, having the team here bright and early this morning to ensure we were all prepared for today was part of our planning journey. Journey needs planning, and people of business here today, you know how crucial good planning is. So let's talk you through setting the scene today. So the sessions here today have been designed in both work streams, have been crafted with insight that will make your trade journey smoother. Whether that's looking at how to make the most of UK post-Brexit trade deals or looking at the new target operating model, we've got you covered here today. So we have two streams taking place today. Stream 1 will take place in the main room here and will cover a range of panel sessions with opportunities for Q&A. So we want to encourage it to be really interactive today. It'll include covering managing the cost of international trade and benefiting from the free ports. Stream 2, which I've been told will take place out the doors and downstairs in the breakout rooms, and this will consist of a range of Ask the Expert clinics from export controls to Incoterms. I'm really looking forward to hearing some of the feedback from today and inspiring stories as we go throughout the panel sessions and getting to speak to you as well as part of the networking sessions. And to that, I want to end, and I would like to introduce the next speech from Lord Offord, the Minister for Exports. Unfortunately, he isn't able to be here with us today as he needs to be even further north to Scotland. However, he still wanted to have a presence here today. So, ladies and gentlemen, Lord Offord.
Hello and welcome to MemberCon23. I'm delighted to get the chance to speak to you all today, and I apologise for not being able to join you in person. I'd like to begin by thanking the Institute for inviting me. You and your members are playing a critical role in boosting UK trade. Together, we can drive growth further and faster, business and government working side by side to achieve our shared goals, with exports holding the key to long-term growth. Because firms that export tend to be more innovative and productive and create better paid jobs. That's why it's vital we join forces to get trade moving. And we're already making progress with UK exports worth more than $845 billion in the 12 months to April, up almost a quarter on the previous year. All thanks to the excellence of businesses like yours. We also cemented our place as the world's second biggest services exporter, hitting a record high last year, over $400 billion of services exports, 4% above 2018 levels, even after taking out inflation. And built on our lead as Europe's tech capital and unicorn hub, home to Europe's largest edtech sector and the second biggest fintech industry globally. These are superb British success stories, but I know we could and should be doing even better, harnessing the export potential that exists across the UK. Potential that I've made it my mission to unleash. As Minister for Exports, I'm pulling out all the stops to ensure that UK businesses get all the support they need to sell their goods and services overseas, including the SMEs at the backbone of our economy. Helping firms access the benefits of trade deals we're securing for the UK with some of the world's biggest and most dynamic economies. We have signed deals with more than 70 countries so far, accounting for over $1 trillion in UK trade. But there's still more to do. We're working around the clock to negotiate a comprehensive free trade agreement with India. And when we join the CPTPP, almost 99% of our goods exports to a $9 trillion trade bloc made up of 11 Pacific nations will be free from tariffs. The Australia and New Zealand FTAs, which came into force last month, are the first deals to be negotiated from scratch by the UK as an independent trading nation. The deal with Australia alone removes tariffs on all UK exports, potentially boosting trade by up to 50%. Likewise, the FTA we've secured with New Zealand will give British manufacturers tariff-free market access, together with flexible rules of origin and simple customs procedures. And we're working outside of these deals to bring down other barriers to trade for British exporters too. Thanks to the work of my department, we have removed 400 such barriers to business so far, from tackling banking restrictions for UK firms in Colombia to opening the way for the first shipment of Welsh lamb to the US in more than 20 years. We want all British firms to access the superb benefit that trade brings, and we have developed a comprehensive range of support to help you to do so. Our export support service provides the first point of contact for businesses to start their export journey. We have an extensive team of specialist trade advisors based across the UK and around the world who are helping firms unlock their export potential, connecting businesses directly with an in-market trade advisor, giving them access to specialist sector reports and sharing detailed market intelligence. And then there's our Export Academy, which helps businesses build the capability and confidence they need to access new markets. Meanwhile, our export credit agency, UK Export Finance, is providing the crucial access to finance UK businesses need to enter new markets. And we are championing the best of British at global trade shows and through the trade missions we're leading to key markets, showing the world what the UK has to offer. My department has been working side by side with the Institute to encourage more businesses to take advantage of our trade agreements. And I would like to take this opportunity to encourage firms in the room today to give us your views on how best we can support you. We know that businesses across the UK have faced huge challenges. Weathering the disruption caused by the global pandemic and Putin's illegal war in Ukraine. Challenges that British businesses have shown great resilience in overcoming. But there's always also enormous opportunities for growth emerging across the global economy that we're determined to help you take. Without you, our brilliant British makers, creators and innovators, we couldn't achieve our trade goals. Without your partnership, we couldn't harness the great benefits that trade brings to our country. Without you, we couldn't create the new jobs, generate the fresh growth, and spread the prosperity that only trade can deliver. So thank you for all that you do. We're here to help you achieve your export goals. So let's use MemberCon 2023 to drive our partnership forward to build a bigger, better, greener UK economy, driven by the power of trade, with businesses leading the charge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and what a brilliant speech from Lord Offord, talking about how we get trade moving by working together. So I'd now like to invite the IOE&IT's Vice Chairman and Chair of the IOE&IT's Foundation, Marcel Landu, to say a few words. Thank you, Marcel.
Right, good morning everybody. Thank you all for coming. It's a pleasure to see so many of you here. Now I'm standing in because our chairman, Terry Skewer, unfortunately wasn't able to be here today, so apologies from him. But I know that he wishes everybody here today all the very best and hope that you will get a great deal from all the hard work that has been put into providing today's event. I'm going to keep this very brief. There's one thing I want to do in particular which hasn't been touched on yet, and that is that I'd like you all to join me in giving a round of applause to the people that have made today happen internally, because I can tell you an enormous amount of work has gone into it. And as a member myself of the Institute since 1965 is when I joined this institute as a member and still am today. It's been a pleasure to watch the Institute grow and to these amazing levels that we are today. But the level of work that has been achieved, in particular by Helen Hastie, honestly, I think it's amazing what's happened. So can you all join me in a round of applause for the amazing IOE team? So I'm not going to go on any longer, I'm glad to hear you say. Where do we go to next? Back to Helen, right. Enjoy your day, everybody, and I'll see you during the day. Oh, the only other thing I will mention is that, as Kelly said, the IOE Foundation, it comes under my aegis as well, together with Sammy Ingray. We have a table downstairs, and if you're interested in what the foundation does, please don't hesitate to stop by in the break period and ask us all about it. Enjoy the day. See you later. Thank you.
Well, thank you to Lord Offord, Exports Minister, Marcel and Kelly. Businesses certainly have had a tough few years, but we'll hear throughout today how your fellow members, academics and experts have been working together to help our UK businesses to thrive, grow and trade effectively. We do also celebrate these in our member stories. So for those of you who aren't aware, we do have our member monthly, which is published to our 7,600 plus members every month. And this may be your opportunity to share your stories using the hashtag today, and we may feature you in our very next edition. But back to MemberCon. Lord Offord spoke of the 70 plus trade deals in effect across the country, for the countries across the world. And our first panel session of the morning is designed to give more information on making the most of these post-Brexit trade deals. I would like to welcome to the stage our very first panel of the day and invite you all to ask as many questions as you can following the discussion sessions. There will be roaming mics throughout the room, and I hope you enjoy our first session. I welcome your chair, Sangeeta Khurana, Henriette Yardare, Robin Baker, Ned Shelton and Richard Given.
Morning, everyone, and thank you so much for coming. I mean, it's brilliant to see so many members here. I'm really proud to be associated with the Institute and see how we are growing, and the kind of support we have from you here is overwhelming. So a very big thank you for participating in MemberCon. Let's start off with the panel instead of getting carried away. What I'll do is, we know that the panel is going to, so the panel is a very practical kind of a panel, because here we would like to discuss what exactly are the problems that businesses are facing post-Brexit and what can really be done to support you, because that is going to be the underlying emphasis of this. Let me start off by introducing my panelists, and a very big thank you to the illustrious panelists for finding time and coming all the way from quite a distance. We have one panelist who's come from Australia, so please join me in welcoming the panelists here. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you.
So let's start off with introductions. I'll introduce myself first. I am Sangeeta Khurana. I am Professor for Trade Policy at Aston University, and I'm also a Trustee Director of the Institute of Export and International Trade and the Chair of the Academic Board as well. Over to you, Richard.
Great, thank you, Sangeeta. So my name is Richard Given. I'm a Deputy Director in the Department for Business and Trade, and I joined DIT as it was then back in 2016, so I've been involved in that journey the whole way through as we created a new department and built our capability to sign trade agreements. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here and just following up with what Lord Offord said about how important the partnership is between the department and the Institute.
Thank you, thank you. Over to you, Henrietta.
Thank you, Sangeeta. My name is Henriette Yardare. I'm a trade and customs specialist at the Institute, and I'm leading our initiatives on trade agreements, on trade and services, and my background is as a customs officer, which I did for Norway for over a decade, and I've also been a trade negotiator for Norway, Switzerland, Iceland, and Liechtenstein through the European Free Trade Association in Geneva. Thank you.
Wow, perfect. Thank you. Who better than you? Over to you, Richard.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Robin Baker. I'm a research analyst at the London School of Economics' Trade Policy Hub. We are a policy consultancy that specialise in international trade and investment. We work for governments, international institutions, businesses, and other non-government actors. We do a lot of work on FTAs and looking at their trade effects, including business utilisation, and unpicking some of the reasons why firms may or may not choose to utilise FTAs. I'm delighted to be here this morning, and I'm really looking forward to a productive discussion on how the UK can maximise its existing market access agreements.
Thank you. Over to you, Ned.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Good morning, everyone. Preliminarily, I just want to say I have discovered an interesting cricket in recent weeks. Are there any supporters for Australia here? Okay. Please go easy on me when I walk around. No jostling, no abuse, no physical abuse especially. Okay. I'm the founder of Shelton's Group, which is a group of small offices. We have 5 offices in different countries. We are a firm of accountants. We also have a law firm, and Courtney should be here. Courtney's down the back. Australian solicitor, based in our London office, actually, for time zone reasons. I have been working with businesses abroad internationally for about 30 years. Our Sydney office works very much with the UK. I think half of the businesses we look after in Australia are based in the UK. In fact, Courtney and I have already been visiting businesses here in the region, Liverpool, Manchester region. and we will be visiting more in the next couple of days before we return on Friday. We are a unique firm and we only work with internationally operating businesses. My background is law, tax, accounting, and I've done a lot of work over the years with treaties, of which the Australia-UK Free Trade Agreement is a treaty. From EU treaties, social security treaties, investment protection agreements, tax treaties. So it's familiar territory to me generally, and as we'll hear later, very important area of work. Other than that, I just wanted to finalize with the fact that I have lived in a couple of different countries in Europe for many years, the Netherlands and Denmark. And in case it means anything to anyone, I speak fluent Danish and have no problem reading Dutch, Norwegian, and Swedish. You never know. Thank you very much. Several of the world's most useless languages.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm sure your expertise is going to come in really handy for businesses here that want to trade with Australia. And obviously, as I can imagine, very many businesses would be using the trade agreements that the UK has done because, as we just heard, we have over 70 trade deals that exist today. Some were rolled over from the EU. The new ones are Australia and New Zealand. And I'm sure some of you may have some experiences you would like to share, and I would welcome that when we go to the Q&A. We also know that negotiations are ongoing currently with India, with Switzerland, with Canada, and there's a lot happening on the trade front. This was a front that was quite sleepy a few years ago, but all of a sudden has been energized. There's a lot of activity happening, and all of us are experts on FTAs, aren't we? And if not, we have been pushed to that corner where we all have to understand what an FTA is. How do you utilize an FTA? How do you make the most of an FTA to be able to benefit from the commitments that countries bilaterally have taken bilaterally? But you see, it's good doing trade agreements. It's good to have that buzz. But that buzz lasts only when businesses like you can trade. If you cannot trade and utilize an FTA, it's of no use. It's just a piece of paper. And in this session, we want to understand what is it the government is doing for businesses? What is it businesses need to be able to benefit from the trade deals that the government has done? Not only from the perspective of government, but we've also got eminent panelists here who will actually provide their expert opinion on what can be done by businesses. So please make this an interactive session. How I will go about is I'll start off with a few questions to each of the panelists, and then I'll open up the floor to the House. We'll have a roving mic, and please feel free to ask questions that you have. So let's get started. And my first question is to you, Richard. The government has been really successful at striking these trade deals, and we often see in the press how great they are, and we saw those beautiful numbers, 9 billion, and in billions, basically, the gains are. But do you think that businesses are actually ready to benefit from those trade deals? And if they are ready, to what extent do you think they can benefit from these trade deals?
This is a great question. So, look, trade agreements are complex, necessarily so actually, that they're international treaties. The UK-Australia trade deal, I'll get my numbers right, it's 32 chapters, 4 annexes, 20 side letters. I've read a fair bit of it, but I'm not expecting many people have read all of that. So they are complex, but they're important. They're important because they set the ground rules for how we're going to trade with other nations. And I think businesses don't need to understand all of the agreement, but they need to understand the basic anatomy so they can navigate it and work out what will matter for them so they can take advantage of it. But I spent about 5 years doing research as an economist working in export support, and survey after survey that we did showed that awareness is really low. We know that about 33% of businesses aren't aware of whether preferential tariffs would apply to their goods exports. We also know that businesses want more from government in terms of the advice and guidance. We haven't always got that right in terms of how we pitch that. So they are important for the reasons that I said. They set the ground rules. I think, what's the solution? Well, I think it's partly what we're doing here today, having this conversation about how we can collectively raise awareness and focus our activity jointly on those parts of the agreement that make the most difference to most companies, and through partnership kind of expand our understanding. And really on the Australia-New Zealand deals, which have just come into force, my team produced over 40 pieces of new business-friendly guidance, including sector-specific documents that focus on the benefits and link the FTA to specific opportunities. We've had great feedback on that, and I have to say we did that partly in partnership with the IOE and other organisations. That's a starting point, and I think that's the minimum to be expected from government, is really good business-friendly advice, and we haven't always got that right. But I think taking that to the next level, it is about getting much more specific, because the devil is in the detail when it comes to FTA. So, my ambition is to work with organisations like the IOE, the chambers, particular trade associations, go deeper into it, find out what bits matter most for which sectors, and then take that engagement to another more detailed level so we can bring it alive, work out what exactly makes the biggest difference for particular firms in particular industries, and continue that awareness building program. But I think it's a challenge. But what I would say, we've done some work on international comparators. This is not unique to the UK. Utilisation of FTAs amongst SMEs tends to be relatively low, depending on the nature of the goods, etc. And awareness can be low. So it's a challenge that many other countries face, and we're also really keen to learn from other nations and what they're doing in this space. So yeah, big opportunities, a big prize in terms of growing trade, but we do have work to do because they are complex. But I think I'm confident that working with organisations and engaging with business, we can sort of really increase that awareness and give businesses the confidence to navigate those agreements.
Completely agree. Just a follow-on question. Do you have any specific targeted programs for SMEs, for small businesses? Yeah. Because they form the bulk, the backbone of the economy. So what are we doing for that?
It's a great question. So from the very start, my position has been that we don't talk about FTAs in isolation, that our discussion about FTAs and what they matter has to be embedded in that broader export support offer, because, as I said, the FTA sets the ground rules, but there's all the other regulations, domestic and in those other countries, that matter. So I think it's about embedding it into the support that DBT already provides for businesses, whether that's particular modules on the Export Academy, upskilling our ITA so they know how to get the information they need to help particular businesses. Lord Offord mentioned the Export Support Service, which is now taking queries on the Australia-New Zealand deal. So it's building it into the conversation, because that's how trade works. These are complicated provisions, and it's their interaction with other domestic and foreign legislation that matters. So that's the ethos, I think, that we're applying to that.
Yes, as you rightly say, it's all technical jargon, and breaking it up into simplified concepts and terms is what really matters, and that is what is going to increase the uptake of a trade agreement. Thank you so much for shedding light on the proposed approach, how you are going to work closely with the businesses. My question to you is, my next question is for Robin. Robin, you research on trade agreements, right, at the LSE. So the question is, based on your research, what can you say has been the UK's approach to trade deals so far? I mean, it's great to hear from the government perspective that they are working alongside businesses, trying to promote information, get information out as much as possible, provide a certain, a very flexible and enabling business environment. What is your take based on the research?
Yeah, so I will concede that Richard has just taken a lot of my talking points. But perhaps I can tell you a little bit about some of the research that we've done, and then maybe circle back onto how the findings relate to maybe what the government should be doing. So the Trade Policy Hub were recently commissioned by the UK Embassy in Tokyo to assess British market performance in Japan. In particular, we looked at business utilisation in the wake of the Comprehensive Economic and Partnership Agreement signed between the UK and Japan. It's kind of one of the most sort of prominent post-Brexit trade deals signed by the UK. We also worked with the Institute for Export, its membership, and other businesses to try and unpick the reasons why firms may or may not be utilising a given trade agreement. And what we found was relatively predictable. So we found that utilisation rates are closely related to preference margins. Now, preference margins are the tariff saving offered by an FTA. The higher the preference margin, the higher the tariff saving, the more likely it is that businesses will utilise a given FTA. Now, the UK tends to specialise as just a natural consequence of its trade profile. The UK will tend to specialise in products where MFN duties are already quite low. Things like advanced industrial machinery, scientific instruments, pharmaceuticals, vehicles. What this means is that for some UK exporters, the burden of compliance is actually higher than the tariff saving. And as a consequence, we tend to see that utilisation rates amongst UK businesses are slightly lower than comparative countries. In our study, we looked at Canada and France, for instance. So the challenge for people in government and policy is that these low utilisation rates provide an additional incentive to reduce that burden of compliance. It's absolutely imperative that there is good awareness of the UK's FTAs. So one of the things we found, one of the key findings, was that a lot of businesses just simply weren't aware that the FTA existed, or they weren't aware of its specific benefits. Now, to someone who works in policy, that can be quite alarming. But what we see is actually it's relatively common for FTAs, not just the UK's FTAs, but for FTAs signed by other countries. Utilisation rates tend to start really low, and they increase over time with procedural learning and heightened awareness. This process can be expedited, as Richard alluded to, and the European Commission has actually had a lot of success in increasing EU FTAs with kind of intense informational campaigns, particularly targeted at industry associations. Aside from awareness, I think it goes back to kind of what I alluded to previously, reducing the burden of compliance. So one of the findings from our study in Japan is that utilisation rates are particularly low for products with really complex product-specific rules of origin. Now, the UK government step-by-step guide on exporting includes some fantastic information to help businesses understand product-specific rules of origin, but a lot of the firms we spoke to still felt more could be done to assist with sourcing and completing the relevant documentation, things like origin certificates. And then another finding from our study was that businesses were slightly concerned about FTA overlap. They were worried about navigating a spaghetti bowl of free trade agreements. So for UK exporters to Japan, they previously exported under the EU EPA from 2018 to 2020, and then in 2021 they switched to the CEPA as a consequence of the Brexit rollover deal. And now, in a few weeks' time, they'll be able to also export under the CPTPP. And businesses were really concerned about this, and therefore I think it's important that UK government tools clearly outline the benefits and appropriateness of each trade agreement, particularly as these agreements offer not only sometimes differing tariff rates, but also different rules of origin regimes. And one of the best examples of this that I've seen is the DFAT portal in Australia, the Find an FTA portal. It very clearly outlines for would-be Australian exporters the goods and services market access that they have under various FTAs. Australia has a number of overlapping FTAs, and that service has been really, really important in helping businesses navigate this spaghetti bowl. So those are the kind of three main findings from our study.
Thank you so much. Very interesting. I think my next question will be to you, Henrietta, because you lead on the Institute's side, engaging with DBT on trade deal utilization. And you've done so many webinars. I'm sure very many of you are familiar with Henrietta. So my question to you is, what are the main things businesses need to be aware of when they are trying to navigate the landscape of trade deals and do business? So how is it that they can benefit from a trade deal? What is your take on that, Henrietta?
Thank you, Sangeeta. And it's a good question. It's a question we are asked a lot. I'm assuming it's the same with you. And I think, as you said, we know no one's going to read a trade agreement. A trade agreement, it is a legal text. It is thousands of pages. And it's hard to understand if you don't have the right background, if you're not from the sector or have experience from this. And it's also for people with a special interest like us that are actually paid to read them. So I think what people need to, and businesses need to be aware of, is know the market. Know where your business fit in. So understand if there is room for you in the market that you're looking to either expand to or move your business to. Know what it means for your business. And I think then do your research. So don't only look at the trade agreement, but look at the market itself. Look at the challenges that other businesses have faced. Talk to other businesses that have already established themselves in that market. So what we hear is that businesses doesn't necessarily want to hear from us or from government. They want to hear from other businesses. So you want to hear other people's success stories. You want to hear about the challenges that they have overcome to get there. You want to hear about what they would have changed if they could go back and do it again. And I think that's really helpful. And I think that's one of my recommendations is reach out to the market. It can be to a government post, it can be to an embassy, it can be trade associations, but it can also be other businesses. So don't necessarily look at other businesses as competition, but use them for support, because I think they can be your best support. But do also use the other available resources, such as us at IOE, as the government, or other available support. And we actually asked our members, like, when you face a challenge in international trade, how do you overcome it? And using government support or our support was not the one that businesses went for the most. It was actually online research. So I think that proves how important it is that we have good available online support. So I did work with DBT here on the available support that are on your websites now. But when I talk about it, when I'm around talking to businesses, they aren't aware of it. So it just highlights the importance of do the online research, as you already do. But I think it's also for government to make it more visible, make it available, because what is available there is great support. It is very based on what businesses need, and it is very targeted on sectors, on markets. On Australia and New Zealand, there are a lot of benefits for businesses, so do have a look and do use what is available, and not just the sector guides or the guides, but do use the people as well. As we heard earlier, you have the export support services, you have us at IOE. We recently opened a call center, as you heard about previously. Use these resources. And one thing that's not necessarily talked about that much, know the cultural differences. Dealing in international trade, you will not be dealing with other UK businesses. They are not all English speakers, they have different cultures, so know who you're dealing with. Know the traditions, know how to approach them, how to talk to them. It can make a huge difference. And for myself, having worked and lived in several different countries in Europe, I know the importance of it, because if I don't approach people in the right way, they might just walk away. They don't really want to deal with me, and having worked in the diplomatic scene, it matters, but it also matters for businesses. So take the time and know who you're talking to is my recommendations.
Thank you, very interesting. And I think I would also like to add onto what you said, that I think businesses, what you rightly alluded to, businesses can support businesses. They are the only ones that can support. So on that note, I would encourage you all to go on Twitter, LinkedIn, and share your stories, and please remember to tag us. My next question is to you, Ned. You've come all the way from Australia, so a very big thank you. As someone who's been supporting businesses both in the UK and in Australia, I would like to ask you, where do you see the benefits for exporting businesses? I mean, and it would be great if you could break it up by the size of business, by sectors, because you have such deep knowledge.
Thank you, Sangeeta. I personally am very excited about the free trade agreement. It's an amazing achievement to have that in force. There are so many areas that can be helpful. I wasn't really prepared to go through too many sectors, but certainly SMEs, which is the area I'm most familiar with, and that's where we have advised most clients on the SME size. I would like to just address one particular aspect. It's not a sector, and it's not a particular specific benefit on its own, but it has to do with mobility and the ability of people, UK nationals, to go to Australia, physically work in Australia, either with an employer, UK employer, with their subsidiary in Australia or some other operation in Australia, or as an independent consultant. There's also the reverse, which can also be of some benefit to UK businesses. If you would dare me from the colonies say that some of us are actually quite useful back here in the UK when we're talking about attacking the Australian market. This ability, this increased mobility, comes in various parts of this wonderful document. Now, Richard mentioned it was fairly... Have I been cut off? Richard mentioned it's fairly lengthy and comprehensive. The version I'm using has 2,069 pages. But as Richard and I were discussing earlier today, there's more to come. There are various committees, subcommittees, and something called dialogues that are doing work on the detail. The detail is yet to come. So the areas that we're talking about in terms of mobility, one that I like is the Working Holiday Maker visa. That's an Australian term. The UK equivalent, Youth Mobility Scheme. The Working Holiday Maker scheme is changed advantageously for British nationals so that they can be up to the age of 35 when they apply for the Working Holiday Maker visa. You can be 35 at the time rather than 30, which is currently the case. The downside is that still they can only work for 6 months with the same employer. But even the businesses we have visited here yesterday since arriving are pretty interested in this because the difference between someone aged 30 and someone aged 35 in an organisation is great. A 29-year-old whippersnapper doesn't know as much as a 34-year-old experienced executive or technical person. If I may, I'm probably offending a lot of you in the room. But it is a very important group. But in addition to that is professionals. So more work in terms of mutual recognition of professionals. We're talking accountants, engineers, architects, and a range of others. And as we know, engineers can potentially cover a whole range of really interesting people. These people might not necessarily be going over as an engineer under this heading, but may well be going over on their own bat, not going over working for a particular company, but going there as an independent consultant. But this means that the pool of UK-trained, UK-savvy professionals in Australia will increase. Therefore, UK businesses can tap into that resource also over there. There's an innovation visa, a UK innovation, so for UK innovators, whatever that might be. We're talking about the devil in the detail, right? Special visa stream for those sorts of people. The early career skills exchange. So early career, people early in their career. Here we're talking about people up to 45 years old. That is an opportunity for more people from the UK, more British nationals to go to Australia and exploit these. These are just headlines so far in the free trade agreement, essentially headlines. So the detail has to be worked out, and to a great degree it requires changes in the legislation. So let's see how that goes. But the benefit of all of this is that the UK businesses working in Australia have greater ability to send people out there, have a great ability to exploit, or I shouldn't say exploit, that's not a very good term, to utilise the skills of knowledge and experience of Brits who are already out there. That covers all sectors, it covers everything. And that's why I like this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. We know that Australia was early to the party. The UK was a bit late in signing up to trade deals as an independent nation. So my follow-on question to you is, what can the UK learn from Australia in getting businesses to use trade deals? Because we know that businesses based out of Australia have been able to utilize the trade deals much more intensively. So what would be your piece of advice? What are your thoughts?
I've listened very carefully to the question, Sangeeta, and I'm trying to work out, does cricket come into the scope here in terms of learning from Australia? If cricket doesn't come in, and by the way, if you're not too tuned into my little remarks about cricket, ask someone in the break. You will find a few who know what I'm talking about. It's very hard for me, again, coming from the colonies, coming here, my humble self, trying to say what can the UK learn from Australia. And to be frank, it's a difficult question. I won't even say it's a good question. It's a bit of a bugger. It's a tricky one. But one thing I really enjoy is, I really have a great admiration for, is what Austrade does. Australia is a smaller country, it's a middle-sized country, but Austrade is quite spectacular in terms of what it has achieved, including, and here talking about my thunder or talking points having been taken, what is available on the internet, for example, is very useful. But now we hear Henrietta saying that the UK has fantastic stuff available as well. It's more a question of selling it to people, making them aware that it's there. But I suppose the difference is that Australia has had free trade agreements since about 1983. I think the first one was with New Zealand, and that was basically before the internet. Okay? So Australia's had a lot of experience in selling it that way, digitally. But really, I think part of Australia's history in negotiating free trade agreements, they have accepted, or we have accepted more, the idea of compromise. It might sound unusual for Australians, but there is this compromise. If you want to get a trade deal done, you have to give a lot of points. There has to be the political willpower to do that. And that's not something I suppose the UK can learn from Australia, but something that will come naturally as Australia is more experienced, as the UK becomes more engrossed in the whole process and has to understand that they've got to swallow a bit. If they want to get a deal done, has to be compromise.
Thank you, thank you. My next follow-on question before I open the panel to the audience. My question to you, Richard, is you've been researching on trade deals, right? What kind of problems or obstacles do businesses face when they try to access new markets?
Yeah, so I think in terms of barriers, the first one is one that we've spoken about a lot, so I won't go on for too long, but it's awareness. As we found in our research, there is a distinct lack of awareness towards the FTAs that have been signed. Therefore, I think it's really important that we continue with the online tools, the professional networks, the fantastic work that's being done by DBT and the Institute of Export.
So what about documents? Because often I hear from businesses that they have problem understanding, the lengthy documents. So what was your finding about that?
In terms of specific documents, we found obviously the one that is specific to exporting under an FTA is predominantly origin certificates. And the kind of main issue with that is, I think if you go onto the UK Gov website, which is what a lot of businesses tend to do when they're seeking help on this, and kind of go through the step-by-step exporting guide. As I mentioned previously, it has the tariff rate, it has the product-specific rules of origin, But when it comes to actually sourcing the documentation and filling it out, I think it just really directs you to the trade agreement. And as we've already spoken about, trade agreements can be in excess of 2,000 pages. And even things like that, it makes it more difficult for businesses to comply. It increases that burden of compliance that I spoke about earlier. The other aspect or barrier that I think was pretty paramount in our research is establishing partnerships in country. So the vast majority of the UK's exports to Japan go through customs brokerage. And there are a number of really fantastic institutions, including the Export to Japan, the non-for-profit, who have been absolutely instrumental in helping UK exporters find customs brokers and other commercial partners in Japan. But again, we kind of see a lack of awareness that these organisations exist. A lot of businesses were asking for the tools to be put in touch with Japanese partners, and the reality is they are out there, but maybe they're obscured, maybe they're not doing enough to kind of advertise themselves. Maybe, as Ned spoke about, it's just a case of experience. This is a very new process for the UK. So I think those are kind of the main three barriers that I would highlight: awareness, documentation, as you mentioned, and then also in-country partnerships.
Thank you. Let me open this to the floor. What exactly, I mean, there are so many of you who are in international business. So what are your thoughts? What kind of challenges do you face on a daily basis? Who would like to go first? Because you have the doctors here who will give you the solution. Would anyone like to share experiences, good, bad? Well, I'm sure some of you have experience. Yes, please.
Yes, my name is Marco Simon. I'm an international trade advisor with the Department for Business and Trade. Hi. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So my name is Marco Simon. I'm an international trade advisor with the Department for Business and Trade. And I think one thing the government is failing at doing is listening to businesses. We deal with businesses on a daily basis, and the number one reason that we get from businesses for not utilizing FTAs is the lack of understanding. So there's 70 different free trade agreements, there's thousands of products, each one of them with different product-specific basic rules. And by the way, businesses don't even know what a product-specific basic rule is. So it just doesn't help much that there's guidance. Businesses don't have the time to sit down and go through dozens of guidance, so they need somebody to actually sit with them. People like, myself and the different trade advisory services team throughout the UK to actually discuss this with businesses and show them the way. It's just a lack of understanding and a lack of time for businesses to actually sit down and having to go through, dozens and dozens of different guidance on each FTA. So just wanted to share that experience.
Thank you. Yes, very useful. Because you see, it's not only the ability to utilize the FTA, one needs time, yes, to understand what the documents say, what the rules are. But at the moment, we are also being faced with high inflation, high interest rates. So all this is also not helping us. Because I keep speaking to businesses, and there are some of you here, and I won't look at anyone, but I was informed that it's the rate of inflation that is creeping up, and what has happened, the divorce with the EU has not really helped businesses a lot, because there is lack of certainty as to where we are going as an economy. Any comments, any questions? Yes, please. If you could just introduce yourself. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Adriana Santos. I'm head of international at the Tracoments company, and I'm also a DBT export champion. I think it's not a question, I think it's more of a comment based on experience that I have with exporting. We export to over 20 countries. So I do know my way around, like all the complexities that comes with export. But something that I think it was quite interesting for me to mention, we export to South Korea, and during the process of starting to export to South Korea, our importer advised, they asked if you have the customs authorization number, which essentially is, we have to have a number that is what they call the approved exporter to be able to export South Korea, and then our import in South Korea could benefit of the preferential tariff rates. Without that, one of our products would attract around, I think, 35% duties. And I think that was quite interesting because it wasn't something that I was aware of, but it was my importer in South Korea that made me aware of that, because they knew they need that particular number to be able to import our products without being too expensive for the market. So what I would like to mention, I think, when it comes to free trade agreements or anything that we have for the countries, it's really important that you work together if you're an importer, because if they are interested to bring goods from UK, then you know what is required, because of course they want to benefit from it as well. So I thought it would be that example to be a nice thing just to put out to everyone.
Thank you, very useful. I completely agree with you because, well, let's remember it's not only tariffs that we are trying to address within the FTA landscape, but also non-tariff measures, because it's the regulations and documentation that is what really creates more of a barrier than tariffs. Tariffs, you can still go to the tariff schedule and have a look. So yes, thank you so much for pointing that out. Any more observations? Any comments? Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Susana Cordova, and I'm the head of international trade at GM Chamber of Commerce, Greater Manchester. One thing I noticed, and maybe this is a comment but also a question at the same time, is the fact that most of the trade agreements make a lot of emphasis, and this goes to what Robin mentioned, to the tariffs, the savings in tariffs, but most of our economy is service-led, so there is a huge gap, I think, in the communications in terms of how exporters of services can also benefit from it. So that was one. The second one is also alluding to the fact of what Richard mentioned about working more closely with chambers of commerce, trade associations, institute, because I still feel that there is an enormous gap in that kind of collaborative working. We work daily with exporters, so we are kind of facing these challenges day in and day out. The third one is the terms of what they mentioned in terms of the information available. So it's improved, I have to say, massively. But as mentioned by the DBT advisor over there, when it comes to rules of origin, that's a minefield, especially with certain specific products. And I think that information is not easily found. Even for us, sometimes we have to kind of, as advisors, we also have to kind of do a lot of research, and it's time consuming. And one thing I feel like it could be improved a lot is the fact that the website or the Gov website can also link or mention the organizations that can help traders, like the Institute, the chambers, trade associations, because we will be able to guide some of these companies through those challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other comments? Yes, please. One last. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Denise Melling from Milliken. One of the things I wanted to comment on is around the trade tariffs and all those kind of things, and the fact that we're outside the PEM Convention, but we are looking at where we have such connected supply chains that we're using EU products within our products to go back out, but to other countries as well, like Serbia. And I also wanted to make a comment that government is not working, because I had to be told by the Serbian authorities that I was under investigation and had to tell HMRC to come and investigate us, because obviously we were fine, our origin investigation was fine, but it really shouldn't be down to businesses to be told by a foreign power that they're under investigation and ask us to intervene with the government.
Thank you so much. Then this brings me, okay, right, one last. Okay, two more, and then because we are running out of time.
Hi there, Charlotte
Hello.
Richardson. I'm Trade Compliance Specialist for Adtran Networks. I think one of the biggest blocks for UK exporters, particularly people who are, or companies that are new to it following Brexit, is having a party in a foreign country that is the importer of record. When we send goods to Northern Ireland, we can do so with the support of the Trader Support Service, which can now act as an importer of record. But where companies are selling direct to a customer, the customer may not necessarily want to be a registered importer. Maybe there isn't a long-term contract, maybe they're not, for the customer, maybe they're not importing enough. Maybe they're a small company and can't provide resources to do this. And the work that the TSS has done in enabling us to move goods in and out of Northern Ireland has been fantastic. And obviously the support then through the IOE and the government is a complete package. And I think that post-Brexit, it would be really useful if we could have a similar organisation within Europe and possibly extending to other countries, where we can provide support to people exporting to customers who aren't able to be registered importers in those countries.
Thank you. Thank you. One last comment, please.
My name is Rasim Hussain. I'm the founder of Devolution Limited, which is a customs broker and customs consultant. I heard that I wanted to make comments about what I heard, like the comments was about tariff, which is tariff a lot about differentiation, like kind of, you know, why the product is different and whether the origin, I think we're missing opportunity more kind of generalizing and explaining things common which would make things easier, you know, to the traders. And also, I heard about prosecution and risk associated with free trade agreements. And I think I don't want to scare people and kill innovation in a way, but in fact, when exporter makes a statement, he makes himself liable for prosecution. So, and how much this risks, not just opportunities, you planning to, you know, illuminate to companies so it could help them?
Thank you so much. I think the last three comments and observations were, those three I would point to you to answer, please. We just have a minute.
So I'm sure my fellow panelists like me will be happy to address some of the other questions in the networking session afterwards. But I think key takeaway for me is the point on guidance, and the last point was related to that too. I mean, I think how much can and should government do in terms of guidance? How far can we go? And at what point does that start to become advice to individual firms, which takes you into the compliance risks? So a message I get is, can't you make it simpler? Can't you put it all in one page? Can't I have the 7 easy steps? And the answer is, no, that's really hard. We can't do that in general advice on something as complex as rules of origin. We can't explain away all of that. But the question then is, how do we work with others who can help us do that? Is the civil service the best organisation to explain rules of origin and help people? You know, we've got loads of brilliant partnerships. So my ambition is for us to work through those partnerships to provide that guidance at individual, because I think we can't cover all of it, and perhaps nor should we. Are we best placed to do that, actually?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and second what you're saying. I think what's really important is, yes, the government can play a leading role in trying to provide information to businesses, but it's also the responsibility of businesses to communicate with each other, share stories, and support each other. It has to be some kind of a partnership that we are looking for if we would like to benefit from the trade deals. I think we have run out of time. Please join me in saying thank you to the panelists. It has been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. And
thank you, Sangeeta.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd also like to say thank you to our exceptional panelists and to everybody in the room who contributed to the session. We've heard from Lord Offord, we've heard from Robin, and we've heard from Richard that our members do feed into these consultations. And one of the areas that we're keen to encourage our members to do is more of this. So I'll ask you for the next time to just exercise your fingers, phones and arms as we ask you to feed into, following that brilliant panel, how much do you feel your business will benefit from future free trade agreements? Now, this information will give us a really great oversight of how important it can be, as we've talked about, to get that guidance, the illumination, and find those supporting services that will really enable you to trade effectively with these agreements. Brilliant. Great to see so many people saying benefiting a lot from these. So I'll close this off, and I will thank everybody for their time this morning so far. Your chance now to go and refresh, recaffeinate, rehydrate, and meet with our brilliant exhibitors downstairs floor. We'll be back here in this main room for the Managing the Cost of International Trade panel, and then in our first ever Ask the Expert clinics downstairs, we'll be covering off export controls. So thank you everybody, and we'll see you back here for the next session. Thank you again, everyone.
Bye.